Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Gamera, Guardian of the Universe. For these titans of the kaiju film industry, their movies have reached a legendary status across the globe, yet they have never crossed paths. With such a monstrous travesty, I ask for the fifth and final time on a day 1 year since I started What If Kaiju, what if Gamera was in Godzilla Heisei's universe? Will they be dead by 1996? Wait, where's the rest of the script? Jokes aside, this video will be sort of an epilogue for the two legendary characters' respective stories throughout the Heisei timeline. Very much like how the third part of my What If Monster vs. Ghidorah was in the Showa era video primarily focused on the aftermath of King Ghidorah's death on the world itself. While Godzilla and Gamera may both be gone, their legacies ultimately press 5 separate kaiju into the spotlight, and where I'll start is with humanity's newest champion, MechaGodzilla Mark II. Now, to those that are a fan of the 1994 Mogera, I must sadly offer my condolences. For in this timeline, he just really wouldn't exist. Now, longtime fans of this series may recall in part 4 that MechaGodzilla was crippled, taken out of the air by a swarm of symbiotic legion. Wouldn't the Japanese Self-Defense Force create Mogera to replace it? Again, no, primarily due to 2 factors. For one, MechaGodzilla was more so disabled than obliterated as it was canonically at the end of its respective film. MechaGodzilla could not intervene in Legion nor Destroya's destructive assaults, but given a few months' time, the mech is repaired, reinforced, and its arsenal upgraded to match that of Mogera's maximum output. For the remainder of this video, I'll also be using Kiryu as a visual stand-in for this MechaGodzilla, even though it'd probably look more so like the poster version of MechaGodzilla from the original Godzilla vs. MechaGodzilla 2. I'm doing this not just because it gives myself more footage to use, specifically I can now use Kiryu's footage for MechaGodzilla instead of constantly using MechaGodzilla 2, but it's to highlight the key difference of this MechaGodzilla compared to its predecessor. The Mega Buster Ray, eye lasers, and even sturdier armor like that of the Super X3 will remain key traits of this machine. What does change for this MechaGodzilla is the Grenade Buster. In its place, a freezing abdominal laser which could put Burning Godzilla within a tomb of ice. This might seem a bit random until you recall how effective freezing weaponry was against Burning Godzilla and Destroya in the last part. Thus, the eyes of the higher JSDF officials were open to a new tactic other than simply matching power with power, which would be the basis if they wanted to create a new Mogera or just Mogera in general. So when Desghidorah awakens in 1996, it is MechaGodzilla that descends upon the Molten Hydra. And if you think this is a close fight or Desghidorah may just pull the win over MechaGodzilla, I must sadly offer my condolences once more. Desghidorah's molten firepower is impressively hot and destructive, but it simply can't compete with the intense heat that MechaGodzilla's armor is built to withstand, a la Burning Godzilla. Additionally, due to being freshly unleashed, Desghidorah wouldn't have the energy reserves needed for a prolonged fight, and he wouldn't have his wings available for greater mobility. The combination of MechaGodzilla's immense firepower, unmeltable metal, and unrivaled freezing capabilities seals Desghidorah's fate here. If Burning Godzilla found himself within a tomb of ice, then Desghidorah is going to find himself on ice pretty quickly when facing this upgraded mech. Those within the upper echelons of the JSDF and Japan as a whole can relish the sweet taste of victory once more, unlike Mothra and the Elias, who you may notice I have not mentioned being involved in Desghidorah's awakening. Well, put simply, that's because they're dead. Wait, oh god, not again. See, Mothra fell to the might of Godmara, the Gamera-Godzilla hybrid from part 3 of this series. With the Guardian's death, so too did the Cosmos fade, a connection well depicted in media like Mothra, Queen of the Monsters. And without Mothra to birth Leo, it's very unlikely that a new Mothra would appear, let alone a new set of Guardians like Laura and Maul. So does this mean the Earth is truly without a Guardian? A protector to call its own? Well, not entirely. The Earth has a history of creating its own Guardians during times of crisis. Look no further than Batcher's creation to combat ancient humanity's control of the weather, and in this timeline, Mew's creation of the Gauss. Couple the lack of any Mothra with humanity's own environmental destruction, the quickly repopulating Gauss threat Desghidorah's recent awakening, and Desghidorah beginning to stir beneath the waves. And you have the recipe for the Earth to foster life in an ancient fallen guardian, our second monster of this scenario. Indeed, it is none other than Bagan, the most infamous Toho monster never to make it to the big screen. Filled with the unrelenting drive to destroy anything which threatens the Earth, the dragon is drawn toward a sea coated with Barum and a devil hiding beneath the waves. Desghidorah. Before I dive into a conversation I'm sure most of you can guess how it's going to end, I first want to discuss Bagan's power. I mean, how tough is a monster that only remained in the concept stage? Well, going off of Super Godzilla, Godzilla, as well as the leaked concept scripts, then we can assume very. The Super Godzilla game gives us our best indication of just what Bagan can do. He's unequivocally stronger than Heisei Godzilla post-Godzilla vs. MechaGodzilla 2, but easily put in his place when confronting a super version of the character. If we assume Burning Godzilla is a rough equivalent to Super Godzilla and ignore Bagan's weaker showings in Godzilla against a fully adult Mothra which he loses to, then we can assume he's in the same ballpark, if not a touch weaker, than the Heisei timeline's ultimate heavy hitter, Desghidorah. A fitting place for Bagan considering he was ultimately pitched as the final boss of the Heisei era, among many other roles. And to those questioning how Ghidorah and Godzilla cells would be infused into Bagan, I'd say the Earth has its ways to gather those ingredients. Magically, of course, instead of scientifically. I doubt the Japanese government got every piece of Heisei Ghidorah beneath the waves, while we all know there are plenty of Godzilla cells lying around and above the Earth. With all that being said, if Bagan is in the same ballpark as Desghidorah's final form, then Desghidorah's immense durability will find its limits absolutely shattered. And there is no escape from Bagan, who should be more than capable of vaporizing anything on land, in the sea, or in the air, including Desghidorah, the city of Nilai Kanai, and anyone that gets in his way. Afterward, the Draconic Guardian vanishes into the heavens, traversing the world to eradicate the Shadow of Evil's infection. However, the persistent, if minor, influence of a vengeful Berera on the dragon gradually corrupts the noble soul the Earth created. Why? Well, Berera here is far less goofy and more so vengeful against humanity. I mean, humanity did create Godzilla after all, and Godzilla ultimately spawned Gamera in a way, and Gamera did kill her sisters, so she definitely hold a bit of a grudge. Also, Godzilla's death in the last part essentially robbed Berera feeling any justice for her sisters. So unable to get justice she thinks she deserves, that madness and malice just slowly darken her own heart and her influence over Bagan. Every battle with the Gauss leading to more destruction, and ultimately more innocent human lives left dead in Bagan's wake. Death ignites hatred against all the cursed monsters of the world, and it's in the heart of one psychic girl that a hidden shrine trembles, setting the stage for our third combatant to appear, a fabled demon of the Mu. Iris' story in the film is inextricably linked to Yana Hirasaka. However, for this part, their bond would not be bound exclusively with hatred. To explain why, we need to go back a few years. Since we are in Godzilla Heisei's timeline, psychics are very much a thing, and Ayana's potential would no doubt be discovered at a very young age, probably by Mickey. Ayana would no doubt be recruited by the Institute and her abilities tested, just like Asagi's was at the start of this series. However, with Iris in hibernation, it's doubtful anything noteworthy would occur involving Ayana until 1994, when Gamera's arrival leads to a familial tragedy. Now, I kinda can guess what you're all thinking, and yes, the odds of this happening again to the same person in this timeline is rather low. I mean, by this point, Japan's populace should be well informed and quick to heed government evacuations after Biollante, Mothra, Batra, King Ghidorah, and other instances of incursion by monsters. For the sake of this scenario though, I am going to have Ayana win this tragic lottery. It's a dark moment for the young girl, one which lays the seeds of rage within her heart to sprout, if not for the spotlight of help, love, and positive reinforcement she receives from her peers. While I can fault Mickey's inaction during the Heisei timeline, especially for not telepathically reading the Futurian's sinister intent, I can't see her ignoring or abandoning a student in crisis. Other students, even Asagi, reach out to support Ayana too. So when she's given the opportunity to be taken by a foster family or stay at the institute, I can see Ayana staying with her newfound psychic family. I mean, dorm life is still going to have its ups and downs, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of trouble and goss to be spread about her, but it should never reach the same volume of toxicity that she experienced back in her village in Gamera 3. Thus, when Ayana watches Bagan's latest and most destructive rampage with other students, her emotional response to the event triggers Iris's awakening. Psychics in the Godzilla universe are known for connecting to their monsters without ever meeting them in person after all. I mean, look no further than Mickey connecting with Godzilla, and in the case of the comics, Tristan in Godzilla Rivals number 3 connecting with Titanosaurus. Anyway, even if we assume Mickey's power is weakening, though less so as I've discussed in the past part thanks to Asagi, she should be able to help Ayana and recognize what is going on with the girl. She would no doubt help Ayana find the monster she's connected to. Thus, an expedition is created, with a substantial group including Ayana traveling to a secluded village and locating Iris. Now, the small creature's discovery is met with immediate backlash from the village, most notably the Moribe family, who claim the creature a demon, a bringer of doom if left to bond to Ayana. Hearing this though, Mickey just kind of ignores their plight, but she has good reason to. For one, Iris hasn't done anything. While yes, we have watched the film and know what Iris can do, in Mickey's point of view, Iris hasn't done anything wrong to deserve this hatred. It's been an egg located in a shrine for maybe thousands of years. And more importantly, as her second point, even if this creature was fated to be a monster, any monster can still change. Look no further than Godzilla. So Iris is taken to Kyoto and placed within a facility the JSDF used for the likes of baby Godzilla. The creature is monitored, fed, and grows up with humanity all around it, leading to less fatal incidents. Don't get me wrong here, Iris is still very much parasitic in its nature and no doubt would still feed off Ayana's emotions. But there is far less rage for Iris to feed on in this situation. I mean, in the film, Ayana disliked her adopted family, excluding her brother, despised the town people around her, and didn't receive the mental help she needed, allowing her hatred to spread like a cancer within her. Thus, when she met Iris, that malicious cancer was all the monster could feed on. By contrast, Iris here's diet is more so emotionally balanced. He would probably have a more positive view of humanity, though at the center of Ayana and the beast, there would still be that little kernel of malice. So when Ayana senses young members of her psychic family vanish, feels pure terror rush through their thoughts and veins, does a spark of wrath turn what was once a speck into a writhing inferno, an inferno which gives birth to golden scales. A king of terror in no need of introduction, Grand King Ghidorah has returned to Earth in 1998, the world's population on the menu. And with no Mothra, it is Bagan who reaches the dragon first, much to Belvera's dismay. Look, she's not opposed to humans dying, in fact she could not care less about the children in the dome and probably wouldn't mind seeing them torched, but she knows how powerful Grand King Ghidorah is, and she doesn't want to lose Bagan. She also can guess that Grand King Ghidorah has gotten a lot stronger since he last caused a global extinction event. So it comes to her surprise just how strong Bagan is when not only does he match Grand King Ghidorah's power, but he goes blow for the Draconic terror. Okay, so it's not completely even. I mean, Bagan's firepower, his plasma breath, is most likely strong enough to pierce the light barrier, and multiple hits would gradually lessen the light barrier's effectiveness as golden scales are reduced to blackness and their inability to reflect light, dampens the overall shield's effectiveness. On the flip side though, Bagan has no shield, he just has to tank everything Grand King Ghidorah throws his way. And while yes, he's immensely durable and probably has super regeneration thanks to Godzilla cells, he can't take this type of firepower forever. While Belvera weighs her options, a human voice calls to her, curling the dark Elia's lips upright with malicious intent. Back on the Japanese Self-Defense Force view for a sec, the decisive draconic action currently ongoing is met with what else but classic human indecision. The government needs to act, that's obvious to every Japanese Self-Defense Force general. The thing is, no one can agree on what plan to enact for either draconic beast. MechaGodzilla should be sent, that's obvious, but should the crew prioritize Grand King Ghidorah or Bagan, or both at the same time? Should they wait for a winner to ensure the mech isn't overwhelmed? But if they do that, what of the children? They could become victims in the crossfire. Then again, inaction could lead to their deaths, as recon suggests. No consensus can really break through the gridlock that is Japanese bureaucracy, that is until Mickey can provide an update. She's spoken to Belvera psychically, just as she did with the Cosmos. If MechaGodzilla comes to Bagan's aid, then Belvera has promised Mickey that she'll reign in Bagan and ensure less human casualties. Now, as you're probably guessing with this, yes, this is a lie from Belvera, and one that Mickey falls for hook, line, and sinker, but the assurance prioritizes Grand King Ghidorah over Bagan. MechaGodzilla is launched with ground forces en route to breach the dome during the battle. As Mickey breathes a sigh of relief, Asagi's mental voice reaches out, warning her that Ayana and Iris are gone. Dead whales are spotted. Panic spreads at the sighting of a phoenix whose wings shimmer like starlight. Iris, fully grown, soars toward Grand King Ghidorah, now fully bonded with Ayana. Unlike Gamera 3 here, Ayana is conscious and chose this connection, while Iris is doing his best not to sap his priestess of her life force, having gained an appreciation of human life during his captivity. This specific Rim-style drift isn't enough for the pair to reach the battlefield first though. That honor goes to MechaGodzilla. Beams cut through the air, followed by a relentless wave of missiles. The King of Terror is caught off guard, yet quickly prioritizes the newly arrived mech. The two essentially enter an energized contest of strength, the perfect opening for Bagan to attack, but the dragon instead takes a breather. His attack never comes. A dark shadow falls over the dome. Soldiers battling the dome's tentacles look on in sheer horror as white plasma churns in Bagan's jaws. With Grand King Ghidorah overcoming MechaGodzilla, Belvera orders Bagan to destroy the dome, destroy the spawn of beings which killed the cosmos, and in a blinding flash of light, you know, for some reason this seems oddly familiar, but I just can't quite place it. Must just be a case of deja vu. Iris's arrival would take Bagan off guard and give him something to think about when a spear drives through the Dark Guardian's chest. To most kaiju, this would represent a mortal blow, but thanks to Bagan's super regeneration a la Godzilla, his regenerability should mostly negate the wound. Don't misconstrue this though as a failure. Tendrils should be able to pop Ghidorah's biodome pretty easily, and that should allow the children and Ayana's psychic family to be free. Iris should also be able to siphon Bagan's power, meaning he can now mimic the Draconic Guardian's abilities. A relatively fair fight this battle has now become. Bagan easily has a massive edge in firepower and durability, but Iris's intelligence thanks to Ayana, his reach, and his greater speed should allow Iris to hold his own for some time. If this sounds crazy or you're making note of power levels, I will say that Mothra was supposed to be able to at least contend with Bagan for some time, and I would argue Iris and Mothra are probably in the same range when it comes to durability. Well, let's check on... oh, yeah, he's kinda in trouble. Even if MechaGodzilla Mark II's firepower surpassed that of Grand King Ghidorah's, the light barrier should turn the robot's blistering all-out assault into something manageable. Missiles would pass through the shield unhampered, and the freezing abdominal cannon could put the King of Terror out of the fight, if not for the dragon's arguably best ability, gravity control. Let's say Grand King Ghidorah was put into a frozen tomb like Burning Godzilla. If conscious, the dragon could still fly and break open its icy tomb, say by smashing itself against MechaGodzilla, which leads me to the mech's greatest weakness, close quarters combat. In Rebirth of Mothra 3, Grand King Ghidorah was no stranger to melee, frequently overpowering Leo. Here, that strength, coupled with eons of experience, leads to MechaGodzilla's defeat after an exhaustive battle. Yet in the face of apparent destruction, it is Asagi's voice that assures everyone not to be afraid. Thunderous footfalls rattle the earth. Dorsal spines crest the horizon. The fifth and final monster has finally arrived on the scene. A young monster hardened by loss. With this fully adult Godzilla Junior's arrival, I'll need to go back in time one last time. I promise I'll keep it brief. After Gamera and Godzilla's deaths, Junior would be alone. I have no doubt psychics would reach out to him, but that doesn't compare to what he lost. Making things worse is the fact that every attempt to gain some purpose, to establish his dominance over territory invaded by Draconic forces, would be over before it began, a la MechaGodzilla and Bagan with Desghidorah and Desghidorah respectively. Junior's just too slow compared to the competition, and sensing Grand King Ghidorah, he was ready to lie dormant in Tokyo's harbor before a mental plea stirred him from his slumber. A plea not from Mickey, but Asagi. someone who over the course of this series now fully understands the importance and necessity of a Godzilla. Also, just in general, a better judge of character Asagi definitely is, and fooled she would not be by Belvera's lie. So on Asagi's behalf and with her faith in him, Godzilla stomps onto the battlefield, ready to defend his people, his territory, his allies. Apologies for the brief interruption, but by far most of you are not subscribed. To stay up to date with the newest scenarios, please consider doing so. Thank you. And unlike dear old dad, Junior isn't holding back from the start. Crimson's spiral atomic rays slam against Ghidorah, immediately worrying Belvera. See, the more she watches Grand King Ghidorah and who he is fighting, the more she realizes that Grand King Ghidorah isn't an enemy, but an ally to assist in humanity's destruction, even at the cost of other life forms on Earth. So when Iris' speed and intelligence abilities are finally overwhelmed by Bagan's unmatched power, bestowing Iris some mortal wound, does the Elias funnel her hatred of Godzilla, of humanity, right into her guardian, and finally fully blacken Bagan's heart. She now has her guardian, her demon of vengeance. White plasma strikes Godzilla, allowing Belvera to speak to Grand King Ghidorah. A temporary alliance is made, Godzilla their target of conquest. Back to another one that's slowly feeling hatred and malice take hold of her, Ayana can feel Iris' life slipping away. A familiar loss and hatred threatens to consume her, but it is the family she's made, the voices of Asagi and Miki, and those she saved, which extinguishes the blaze within her soul. Clarity returns. A plan forms within her mind. MechaGodzilla's pilots get a surprise mental call by Ayana. She asks if they can still fight. They reply that only the freezing cannon still works, but the mech can't stand. Just then, tentacles lift MechaGodzilla, giving the mech the chance to fire one last freezing salvo. A crystallizing layer of ice covers Grand King Ghidorah. Now he's badly wounded and frozen, but given enough time, he can thaw or break himself out of the icy tomb and continue the fight. Time, though, is not something Iris will allow. A spear pierces Draconic flesh. Power, strength, the dragon's very life flows until a withered husk remains and shatters. This surge of power can't heal Iris, as the Ryuseiko can absorb powers, not really change his own DNA. So regeneration is something Iris probably can't absorb from Grand King Ghidorah, but what he can do is use those reserves in one final attack. Unmatched power slams into Bagan, but Ayana can sense a better target with the precious seconds the Ryuseiko has left. So as Bagan is reeling, tentacles snap toward the sky, blindsiding the Dark Elias and her Draconic steed. Gravity beams turn Belvera as well as her hatred to ash, just as Iris finally collapses. Realizing that Iris will die if she doesn't act, Ayana offers her own life to save the dying beast. Yet the Ryuseiko refuses to accept her priestess's offering, understanding, unlike his original timeline self, the value of a human life, and just life in general. Ayana is ejected, and can only look on in horror as Iris succumbs to his wounds. Back to the final battle between Godzilla and Bagan, the loss of Belvera of his own guardian would no doubt unsettle Bagan, creating an opening for Godzilla to exploit. A temporary win against the Draconic Guardian, but alone, with MechaGodzilla out of commission and Iris dead, Godzilla's chances of victory are quite grim. But as the skies fill with the buzz of humanity's weapons of war, Godzilla discovers that he is anything but alone. The Super X-3 and jets unleash hell upon the Guardian, and while it won't be immediate nor easy, all the damage from Grand King Ghidorah, from Iris, from Godzilla and humanity eventually overwhelms the Earth's newest corrupted protector. Light swallows Bagan whole as he detonates, and a bittersweet victory takes hold. All is quiet for the dead, for the monsters which fell, and the human lives lost along the way. Yet as psychics tearfully mourn their fallen demon turned savior, do the pendants in Asagi and Ayana's palms break. Mana fills the heavens, and a roar echoes from beyond the grave. The remnant of the Guardian of the Universe bestows a demon which held the capacity to be Earth's greatest threat, the power to become something more. Ayana feels her connection sever, yet she's not afraid nor hateful over the loss, just relieved to watch Iris arise. Godzilla submerges into the sea. Iris rests within Japan's mountains, and Ayana reunites with her family at the Institute. But what of the Gauss threat? Won't they eventually consume the Earth? Well, no. For after the siren lures the grand horde of the Gauss to the Pacific, does Godzilla and Iris atomize all that stand in their way, just like any foe foolish enough to cross them in the future. So at the end of this series, I can finally answer the question, what would happen if Gamera entered Godzilla's Heisei timeline? Well, Godzilla and Gamera would be enemies, rivals, and ultimately the inspiration for their successors. And that is part 5 wrapped up. I can't promise when I'll have the full story done, but as you guys can tell by the length of this video, this was a massive undertaking, and that full story is going to be a massive undertaking too. Something I'm hoping I can get done the next few weeks, but I'll keep you posted. Now, I'm going to have a full video released next week or next Friday for sure that's going to detail my last year, things I've learned and such, so please keep an eye out for that. Until then, I'm GrayShot151, and I will catch you all next time. Please remember to like and subscribe. Excluding my update video next Friday, the next video to release should be Kong vs. Nemesis, so tune in for that. Until then, later.